She looked at me across the mediation table like a stranger, cold, furious, cornered. She thought she was about to take everything. She had no idea I'd already taken it back. Hello everyone, before I get into this, let me take a second to say something important. If you're listening and enjoying these stories, hitting that subscribe button is one of the best ways to help keep this channel alive. It's free, it's fast, and it helps us keep bringing you these real, gut-punching stories week after week. Thank you for being here. Now, let's get into it. For the longest time, I honestly believed I'd never have a story worth posting here. I've always thought of myself as a reasonable guy, calm, steady, maybe a little too trusting at times. But life has this cruel sense of humor. When it decides to throw a curveball, it doesn't just graze you. It hits you straight in the chest. My wife, let's call her M, and I had been together for 6 years, married for 4. And up until recently, I genuinely thought we were solid. Not perfect, of course, but steady. We had that easy rhythm couples build over time, laughing over dumb inside jokes, bickering over what to watch on Netflix, staying up too late eating takeout on the couch. It wasn't flashy, but it was ours. That's why the shift hit me so hard. It started around 6 months ago. At first, it was nothing you'd write home about. Tiny things. She started taking her phone everywhere, even when she was just walking to the kitchen to grab water. Before that, she'd just leave it on the coffee table, unlocked, face up. I once joked, "What, you part of some secret spy ring now?" She laughed it off. Said work had been emailing her a lot. I let it slide. Then a password showed up on her phone. No warning. No conversation. Just, locked. When I asked why, she gave me some vague line about hackers and security. Reasonable excuse, right? But it felt rehearsed. Too neat. And then came the calls, always stepping outside or slipping into the bedroom to answer them. If I asked, she'd smile lightly and say, "Oh, just a friend from work." But it didn't feel like work. It felt secret. Hidden. And then came the face-down phone. That little movement, her hand flipping the phone upside down when I handed her a glass of water, stuck in my head like a thorn. It was such a small thing, but it whispered louder than any big argument ever could. The distance grew fast after that. Conversations that once flowed easily now felt like trying to squeeze water from a stone. Future plans? Suddenly vague. "We'll see," she'd say, shrugging it off like it didn't matter. Then came the Wednesday. She told me she was meeting a friend for coffee after work. Normal. Totally normal. But I happened to be nearby running errands, and I thought, naively, wouldn't it be sweet to surprise her? I parked across the street from the cafe. And there she was, not inside laughing with a friend. She was pacing outside, phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was tight, focused, not like the woman I joked with over burnt popcorn at 2 a.m. I didn't mean to overhear. But through the cracked car window, I caught pieces of her conversation. "It's almost ready. Starting fresh soon." My heart clenched so hard it felt like my ribs might crack. She wasn't talking about work. This sounded bigger. Final. When she got home, I asked casually, "How was coffee?" She smiled. Lied straight to my face. Something about her friend venting over a bad boyfriend. She was good, smooth, calm, but the image of her outside that cafe didn't match the story she was selling. The next night, she brought up something we'd never discussed before. She turned to me and said, almost casually, "Hey, maybe we should keep all our financial stuff together. Like passwords, account details, documents. Just in case." My stomach dropped. I asked, carefully, "In case of what?" She shrugged. Too casually. "Emergencies. You know. Just smart planning." Her words might have sounded logical to anyone else. But to me, it was like hearing a fire alarm muffled under a pillow, quiet but unmistakable. Over the following days, she brought it up again. Always when I least expected it. In the kitchen, when I was making a sandwich. "Have you thought more about the bank stuff?" she asked, scrolling through her phone like it was nothing. I put down the knife, turned to her, and said gently but firmly, "What's going on?" Her eyes flicked up, wide for half a second before she forced a laugh. "Nothing. You're overthinking." But I wasn't. I could feel it. When she left for work the next day, I sat down at my desk, heart pounding, and opened our joint account. That's when I noticed it, small withdrawals. Not huge. Just enough to be deliberate. Regular. Purposeful. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. My mind raced. Was I wrong? Was I paranoid? Or was this exactly what it looked like, her slowly pulling things apart behind my back? I decided not to confront her. Not yet. Instead, I called an old college friend, someone I trusted completely. A lawyer. After I told him everything, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I'm not saying she's doing anything wrong, but if you're worried, protect yourself." Now. Quietly. I didn't want to hear it. But he was right. That night, sitting alone with my laptop, I stared at our accounts. Our property deeds. Our investments. My hands actually shook as I moved the cursor across the screen. It felt dirty. Like betrayal. But a voice in my head whispered, "If you don't act now, you might lose everything." I transferred the assets. Cash. Investments. Even the house. I moved everything into my mother's name. Left just enough in our joint account to keep up appearances. It wasn't about punishing her. It was about survival. I even called my mom. "I need you to hold some things for me," I told her. She went quiet. She knew I wasn't telling her everything, but after a beat, she said softly, "Whatever you need, sweetheart." When Em came home that night, she kissed my cheek, dropped her bag, and asked if I wanted to watch a movie. She had no idea that everything had changed. The following days were tense. Not on the surface, she seemed happy. Too happy. Like someone who thought everything was falling perfectly into place. But the strangest part? She stopped talking about the finances. Not once more did she mention accounts, passwords, or emergency plans. It was as if she'd flipped a switch. And every now and then, I'd catch her watching me. Not lovingly. Not curiously. Watching me like someone calculating their next move. Something was coming. I could feel it. She never said it out loud, but I could feel it. Whenever I'd glance up from whatever I was doing, she'd be there, pretending to focus on her phone, the TV, sometimes a random book, but that tension was always hanging in the air like smoke that wouldn't clear. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just this quiet pressure that settled between us. She wasn't pushing the topic anymore, but she was waiting. Waiting for me to bring it up first. And I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. If she was testing the waters, she'd get nothing from me. If she was waiting for the right moment, she'd wait forever. I made a silent promise to myself that night, whatever she thought she had planned, I'd be a step ahead. So I double-checked everything. I sat at my desk, opened the folder with all the legal documents, and went over every page like my future depended on it, because it kind of did. The trust papers, the property transfer, the savings, the investments. Every single thing that used to be under my name was now legally shielded under my mom's. Uncontested. Untouchable. I even called her that night. "Do you still have all the documents?" I asked. "Yes," she replied, calm but a little worried. "Everything's in the safe, sweetheart." Hearing that felt like tightening a seatbelt before a storm. I didn't know what was coming, but something was. 2 weeks passed. And weirdly, everything felt too normal. She was suddenly warmer, even affectionate in ways she hadn't been for months. She'd lean into me while we were cooking. She'd laugh more. She'd bring up light, meaningless things like what to eat for dinner or some new job opening she'd seen online. It was disorienting, like someone flipped a switch and decided to play perfect wife again. Part of me, against all logic, began to wonder if I'd overreacted. Maybe it was just stress. Maybe I'd been reading too much into everything. Maybe all those tiny red flags were nothing more than coincidence. I wanted to believe that. God, I really did. But then came Friday night. She walked over, turned off the TV, sat down next to me on the couch, and looked me dead in the eyes. "We need to talk." My stomach dropped. You know that feeling where your brain already knows the punch before it lands? Yeah, that. "I think we should get a divorce." She said it so calmly, like she was telling me we'd run out of milk. No tears. No yelling. No hesitation. Just a clean, cold sentence. I stared at her, trying to process every word that came next. She talked about needing space. About feeling like she'd lost herself. About wanting to figure out who she is. The usual breakup cliches. But then her voice changed, just a touch sharper. "You know, I've made a lot of sacrifices for you. And I don't think you really appreciate them. I deserve more." That one burned. It wasn't just the divorce bomb, it was how she made it sound like I owed her. Like our entire marriage was some kind of favor she'd been doing me. While she talked, my mind spun in a different direction. Why now? Why, after months of acting distant, after strange calls and hidden passwords, was she dropping this now? Then she gave me the missing puzzle piece. "A friend of mine has been helping me see things more clearly," she said. She didn't even look at me when she said it. A friend. Right. My pulse started pounding in my ears. Whoever this friend was, they weren't just giving advice. They were feeding her a script. This wasn't impulsive. This was planned. And the more she rambled about her sacrifices, the angrier I got, not at her words, but at how hollow they were. Sacrifices? When she wanted to move closer to her job, I agreed, even though it meant an extra 45 minutes on the freeway for me every day. When she wanted that ridiculously expensive yoga retreat last year, I made it happen. Skipped a trip I'd been dreaming about for months so she could go. When she switched careers, not once, but twice, I supported her through it. Paid the bills. Told her she'd land on her feet. I wasn't perfect, but I showed up. I loved her. I tried. And now she was rewriting history to justify walking away. But here's the thing, if she expected tears, or begging, or me crumbling, she miscalculated. I just nodded slowly, keeping my face unreadable. "If that's how you feel," I said softly, "then I guess we should figure out next steps." She looked startled. Like she hadn't prepared for me not to fight. Because I wasn't focused on saving the marriage anymore. I was focused on the bigger question, who or what had been whispering in her ear. She didn't just wake up one morning and decide to burn our life down. This was carefully laid out. A strategy. And I had no intention of letting her blindside me any further. After that conversation, she moved into her own place temporarily, to think. The following Monday? I got the divorce papers. The game she thought she was playing had officially begun. Let me tell you, when I finally saw what she was asking for in the divorce, it didn't feel like a split anymore. It felt like a heist. She wasn't just trying to end our marriage, she was trying to strip everything from me. Half the house. My savings. My assets. Even the car. And then there were these weird spousal support clauses buried in the paperwork, vague, manipulative wording that made zero sense, especially considering she had a very comfortable salary of her own. It wasn't about fairness. She wanted it all. At first, I thought maybe she was just angry, trying to hit where it hurt. But the way everything was written, so clean, so strategic, it was obvious someone had been whispering in her ear. Someone who knew exactly what they were doing. So I started digging. I couldn't just walk up to her and ask, "Hey, who's helping you screw me over?" So I got creative. I went through her social media, not the obvious posts, but the tagged photos, comments, little details that most people overlook. That's when I saw him. Jake. Not a new name on her feed exactly, but a new pattern. He liked almost every one of her posts. Always commenting just enough to seem casual. But to me, it stood out like a flare in the dark. I clicked on his profile. Public. And at first glance? Just some 30-something marketing guy. Nothing special. But then I saw it. A photo at the same cafe I'd seen her at weeks earlier. Same day. Same time frame. My stomach twisted. As I scrolled further, I noticed more subtle breadcrumbs, comments like, "You've got this," and a selfie from what looked suspiciously like the lobby of her new apartment building. It wasn't hard proof, but it was enough to make my gut scream what my head was trying to deny. This wasn't just some friend. This was the friend she'd been talking about. I reached out to Lisa, one of our mutual friends. Casual at first, just a friendly chat, pretending I wasn't dying inside. When I asked if she knew who this friend was, she shut down fast. Too fast. Got defensive, made excuses, and ended the conversation. Weird. So I called another friend, Emily. Same routine. She was vague, nervous, and she, too, ended the call quickly. But then, out of nowhere, Emily called me back. Her voice was shaky. She made me promise what she said wouldn't get traced back to her. After a long pause, she finally admitted it. She's been spending a lot of time with a guy named Jake. From work. I think he's been giving her advice. About the divorce. I swear I could feel the puzzle pieces click into place. The cafe. The sudden shift. The calculated demands. Jake wasn't just some shoulder to cry on. He was her co-pilot in this entire operation. That Saturday, I parked a block away from her building, just to be sure. I waited. 2 hours later, she walked out. Jake was right beside her. They didn't hold hands, but they didn't have to. Their body language said enough, leaning in close, whispering like they shared a secret. They got in his car and drove off. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Everything was crystal clear. This wasn't about love fading or finding herself. She'd been laying groundwork. Moving pieces around like a chessboard. But she had no idea that while she was plotting against me, I'd already locked down everything she thought she was going to take. The first mediation session was tense, to say the least. She showed up with her lawyer, who carried a binder so thick it could have doubled as a doorstop. He listed her demands like he was reading a grocery list, half the house, my assets, my savings, the car, and some nonsense about ongoing support. I sat there, calm, listening, waiting. Then my lawyer slid a neat stack of documents across the table. "Before we proceed," he said evenly, "I think it's important everyone reviews these." Her lawyer started flipping through the pages. His eyebrows slowly knit together. Page after page, the color drained from his face. "What is this?" he asked. "These," my lawyer replied, "are the documents showing all major assets transferred into a trust under my client's mother's name. The trust was executed several weeks before the divorce filing. It's legal. It's irrevocable. And fully protected." Silence. Thick. Heavy. Her lawyer turned to her with visible frustration. "You didn't mention this," he said flatly. She snatched the papers, flipping through them like they'd betrayed her personally. Her cheeks went red. This can't be real," she stammered. Her eyes snapped to me, fury flooding her face. "You planned this. You knew I was going to file. You set this up to screw me over." I didn't say a word. Not one. I let her connect the dots all on her own. My lawyer calmly walked them through the timeline, every notarized signature, every transfer, every date. There was nothing they could touch. She leaned forward, practically shaking. "You're unbelievable," she spat. "I can't believe you do something like this to me." I looked at her and said nothing. Because here's the truth, it wasn't something I did to her. It was something I did to protect myself. Her lawyer finally muttered something about needing to revisit their strategy, but everyone in that room knew there was no strategy left. As we left, she grabbed my arm in the hallway, eyes blazing. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You're going to regret this." I looked her dead in the eye and said, calmly, "I already regret trusting you." That was the moment the mask cracked. She spiraled almost immediately. The calls started, dozens of them. Voicemail switching between, "We can fix this," and screaming accusations. One moment, she was crying about how much we'd shared. The next, she was calling me cold, cruel, stingy. I ignored them all. When that didn't work, she tried spinning stories. Mutual friends called, confused, because apparently she'd started claiming the divorce was just a prank or a test of our relationship. A prank. People started asking her questions she couldn't answer. If it's a joke, why did you hire a lawyer? Why the financial demands? When that story flopped, she tried to paint herself as the victim. Claimed my actions were what broke our marriage. For a little while, some people believed her. Even her brother lashed out at me until the truth caught up. The truth came through someone I least expected, Matt. We weren't close, but we were cool. He reached out one night. Said he had something I needed to see. He showed me screenshots. Text messages between her and Jake. Messages that had been passed along through a mutual acquaintance who'd overheard way too much. And there it was. In black and white. Her saying. "Once the settlement's done, we'll have everything we need. I just need him to agree to the terms." Jake replying. "Don't back down. Make him feel guilty if you have to. He owes you. We'll start fresh once you've got the money." I sat there staring at the screen, numb. This wasn't confusion. It wasn't miscommunication. This was betrayal, cold, calculated, and deliberate. The text spread fast. Friends shared them. People who had once stood behind her suddenly started backing away. Even her brother eventually apologized to me. By the time the divorce was finalized, she walked away with only her personal belongings. Her lawyer withdrew her claims quietly. The trust had done its job. Every one of her grand demands collapsed like a house of cards. And Jake? Gone. Vanished the second it became clear she wouldn't be walking away with a windfall. I guess he wasn't looking for a lifelong partner. Just a ticket to someone else's money. Her calls became desperate then. Please, can we just talk? You don't have to forgive me, just, let's settle this. But I didn't answer. I had nothing left to give her. Now, the house is mine. My savings are intact. And for the first time in what feels like forever, I can breathe. My mom came over with paint buckets and design ideas, determined to help me reclaim the space as mine. No more paranoia. No more second guessing. No more walking on eggshells. She's not part of my story anymore. She's just a chapter one closed.